How's it going, everybody? So today I wanted to do another deck tech video. This is the version of Spellatell that I've been running. Today on the ladder, I managed to get to rank 3rd in the world multiple times. We peaked at 3. We didn't get that #1 spot yet, but that's what tomorrow's for. I'm sitting right around 2900 mmr right now, and I've been doing very, very well with the deck. So I just want to show you guys a couple of stats on the deck. It seems slightly unfavored against Nilfgaard. There's not enough Northern Realms to really matter in the games that I've played. I don't have enough information here. Spellatell, this is mostly the mirror, but it's very good against dwarves. You crush Skellige and you crush monsters as well. The Dagon version being a little bit harder to play against than the Eridan version. Eridan version is almost like a free win. So as you can see, the win percentages are quite high across the board, except for the Nilfgaard matchup, which is tough. It's close, it's tough. It's a real down-in-the-dirt kind of fight. So what I wanted to do today was talk about a few of the cards in this deck list, why they're in here, why they're not in here. So just to lay it out in the beginning, the entire point of this deck is basically to continuously remove your opponent's entire board with your litany of spells here. You just want to keep destroying their units, at which point you want to win round 3 with gigantic Dolblathana Protectors. This is your big finisher. Ithilien can get you 2 at a time for a really, really sick tempo swing, upwards of between 35 and 40 points. So it usually winds up. If you manage to get all 3 down in the round, they're generally worth about 60 points, which is going to be, quite hard for your opponents to overcome, particularly if you have the last say. So this deck isn't a completely new idea. This is just my take on it at the moment. We're going to start off with the golds. Ithilien, as I was talking about a little bit earlier, is your main finisher. You almost never want to play her, except in the most dire of circumstances. Before round 3, this card is used to pull 2 first lights into 2 rallies to get 2 of these bad boys onto the board. In the process, you're going to boost them each by a significant amount, being that you're playing first light, then you're playing rally, and you're going to get 2 of them out. It's the biggest tempo swing I've seen in one card in quite some time. And she is the main finisher engine of the deck. Siri is in here just for value. She makes it so it's really hard to get completely blown out in round 1, even if you lose round 1, which is not optimal. This is definitely a deck that really wants to win round 1, but if you're going to lose round 1, at least you're going to win plus a card, and if you win the coin toss, it's very easy to lose the round plus 2 cards, which gives you a lot of leverage going forward on how you want to use your spells to set up for the big finish. Saskia is just a super powerful card. She works, whenever you ethne, Saskia will come out absolutely for free. And yeah, she's great. And this is generally how you win round 1. You kind of annoy them, nag away at their board, blow up some of their stuff, and then you make a big tempo push for 12 strength gold stats, sometimes accompanied by Roach if you haven't played any other golds earlier. So that's 17 plus whatever spell, and it's usually enough to lock your opponent out of round 1. Shiru is in here. He's one of the least common choices that I'm playing with. I think he's fantastic in this deck. Although sometimes the second Scorch isn't super valuable. There's plenty of games where you either turn a Scorch into a Scorch for bluff value, or you just don't use his ability at all, which is fine. A 12 strength, 10 strength gold is exactly what this deck needs. What you're lacking is raw stat points to put onto the board. You have all the removal tools, all the options, all the weather, everything. You don't have stats to put onto the board. And this is mostly due to the fact that you can only run 3 bronze statted units, so that your Ithilien and your first lights every single time will hit a protector, which is sort of the backbone of this deck. So Shiru is a great play to lead on, particularly when you lose the roll and you have to open up into the round. Instead of just trying to weather a row that, let's say you're playing against Nilfgaard, you can weather the front row, as it's very common they're going to start off with those golems after the hero power, things like that. This gives you a very powerful proactive play to get onto the board and establish some semblance of a base. It's a little tempo push, comes out with a Roach, so it's 15 points right off the bat. Lets them know that you have at least 1 Scorch in your hand, possibly 2. And yeah, it's kind of your baseline. Then they have to try and beat that value in gold, because oftentimes you're able to remove every single unit from their board, or if not, damn close to it. Moving on to the silvers, we've already talked about Roach a little bit, but Roach is just amazing in the deck. I would not play the deck without him at all. He just makes your first play that much more impactful. Granted, he very rarely survives the first round unless your last play is Hero Power Saskia Roach into Spell. And that's because you don't have any targets for your opponent's removal. You don't have targets for your opponent's weather. So whenever you do finally play a unit, whatever removal they have sitting around, they're going to burn on him. So he very rarely survives. That being said, he's just insane value here, and we have enough silvers that we're fine. Roach is integral to the deck. So we move on to our silvers, and let's go ahead and start with Sara. So Sara's a card that no one else is really playing at the moment, and she's particularly good. Once in a while, she can be awkward, and I know your first impression of looking at this card is going, ugh, a 7 strength silver, that's terrible. And it is. 7 strength is not powerful. But what she does for this deck is sort of invaluable in a way. We have a deck that's containing multiple Roach type cards that you don't want to have in your opening hand. So she is great at pitching these away. The added bonus is you can hold the Sasuke in your opening hand during the mulligan phase at the beginning of the game when you have Sara in your hand. And not only is it a free mulligan away of this, but it's also guaranteeing you a gold card in your hand. So you're going to hit either your Siri or your Shiro, which can be great round 1 plays, or you're going to know that you have access to your finisher and Ithilien, and that's just completely invaluable. You can play the game very, very differently when you have an Ithilien in your hand than when you don't. To explain a little bit further, when you don't have an Ithilien, in round 2, you're going to start holding on to first lights. You're going to start holding on to a protector. You can't mulligan them away because oftentimes for round 3, you really need access to all 3 of your protectors to win the round. That's just not the case if you have Ithilien. If you have Ithilien, you can hold on to maximum amount of removal spells, whatever you think is going to be best for the situation. Yeah, so just having the Ithilien in your hand or knowing that you're going to have it is great. Sara is really, really helpful. The card that she's included over right now is Yavin. Yavin is in pretty much every other deck, and you are at a disadvantage in the mirror match for not having Yavin. There's no easy way to say it, you just are. But in every other matchup, the Yavin is actually pretty poor. The spots where Yavin is good is if you win round 1 and then you play Siri into Yavin, which is sort of Magic Christmas Land, you're relying on a lot of things to go right. Round 1 can be hard to win. Also, you need the Siri as well. And if you're winning round 1 and you're able to hold on to Siri and Yavin in your hand, like, you're probably in pretty good shape anyway. The main reason for this is that spies, the most powerful time to use spies is when you're significantly far ahead in a round and you can play them and you're either going to be still ahead or your opponent still has to play a very close round with you. That just doesn't come up that often in this deck because while we're great at removing our opponent's threats, while we'll get to the removal suite in a little bit, we're not actually good at putting stats onto the board. So we're never going to be so far ahead that we can just jam a Yavin and it not be super impactful. And if you do jam a Yavin, if you play against opponents that know what's going on and know what you're up to, especially in the higher MMR rankings, well, you're going to notice you're going to get a pass out of them a lot of times, and he sort of just did nothing. So a lot of times he just cycled. One thing he was good at, that Siri also does, is let's say you win round 1 and then your opponent has some carryover. You can then play the Yavin and still force them to play another card. Now, if you don't have Siri or Yavin and they have carryover, you can't just pass round 2 after winning round 1 to get the free card, because once you pass, then they can pass, and they still had a board, so they don't have to invest the card. So that is sort of the one place where Yavin's a bit missed. He also has a little bit of an application against an enemy spy. Sometimes he can be fine there. If they play a spy on you, you can play a spy on them. That mostly comes up against Nilfgaard, but they run decoy a lot anyway, which can just make your day miserable. And they have plenty of great ways to get rid of spies. So all in all, I decided not to include Yavin in the deck. He was in the deck for maybe the first 10 or 15 games I played with it. After that, I decided he didn't quite make the grade. For the rest of the silvers, Nature's Gift. It's any spell you want in your entire deck. It's amazing. Not only that, but it also counts twice to buff your protectors, and if you use it with your hero power, you can use this to go fetch anything out of your deck once again, just buffing your protectors to pretty much an obscene extent. It literally turns into anything you want in your entire deck. The card's invaluable. Don't play the deck without it. It's amazing. Scorch is actually not nearly as good as it used to be back in the days of closed beta when Scorch was a very meta-dominating card. But it's still powerful enough. You want access to it. Against Nilfgaard, it's particularly good against Yokeems. Sometimes with your weather effects, you can set up double Scorches. It's good against Nilfgaardian Knights and Impera Brigades when you can line them up. So the card is good enough to include. Like I said, oftentimes you don't need the second one, but when you need the second one, you've got Shiro and you've got Ethne. So having access to one effectively gives you access to a lot more. The card's good enough to make the grade. Skellige Storm. This is one of my favorite new cards in general. It's just a very, very powerful weather effect. It's highly damaging. If they can't remove it, it's going to destroy your opponent. And having access to it, you can Nature's Gift for it, you can Aeromancy for it, which I'll get to in a second. You can Ethne it back. It's a very common target to hit again with your hero power. Once you're trying to establish tempo and then keep pushing them further behind after they've used weather clears already. This card's amazing, and I think it's being underplayed, if anything, right now. It should just be in more decks as just a strict value card. The card's great. If you get 6 damage off, or even 5 damage off of it, and you trade with a Clear Skies, you're silver traded for a bronze, you bought yourself tempo, and you're up 4 to 6 points, which is a fine trade, and if they don't have an answer for it, it can be devastating. That being said, more and more people are playing around it and putting golds to the right side of their board to minimize its impact, so you do have to find spots for it. Card's just insane, though. I would not play the deck without it. Aeromancy's great. This is another one of your double cards, similar to the Nature's Gift, that really helps buff up your Double Fauna Protectors to an obscene level. This card also finds you whatever weather is perfect for the time, and it can get weather out of your discard pile. So theoretically in a game, you could Skellige Storm, Aeromancy the Skellige Storm, Ethne the Aeromancy the Skellige Storm. You're starting to get the picture here. And yeah, it's just a very powerful card. It's super flexible. It's a great silver. I wouldn't play the deck without it once again. So now we get into the bronze removal suite over here. And this is sort of more picker's choice. You can kind of mix and match a little bit and fit it to your liking and the particular meta that you're playing against. Right now I'm playing in the, the top 10. And in the top 10, my meta might be a little bit different than the meta you're currently playing with. So you can tailor the different bronzes to whatever you're playing against. I'm seeing a ton of Nilfgaard and a ton of Skellige, with a little smattering of the Monsters deck, as you can see by my stats here. Monsters is definitely the third most played deck that I'm coming up against, but there is a significant percentage of it up there. So, let's start. Let's start over here with our win condition. Clear Skies, you don't need 3. If you have Ithilien, they're the worst card. You need to actually make sure that there's one in your deck for Ithilien to target. Don't make the mistake of trying to Ithilien out 2 of your guys, and you've played both your Clear Skies. 2 is exactly the right number. They are also 2 spells, so they double buff your protectors. They are fantastic. I think 2 is absolutely the correct number here, and I wouldn't change that. Mondrian is a card that some people are running, some people aren't. I sort of like it. Sometimes you can't Shackles the Morkvarg. You can't win that fight. This is a card that just helps you win the Morkvarg fight over the long term. You kind of weather them, thunder them, explode them. You just kind of wear it down over time, and this is sort of a free kill on it. Just resets it by 3. It also has other uses. It's great against Katakan. It's great against Cynthia out of some of the Nilfgaard decks. Whatever unit they hit with their Joachim de Witt, Madriam's amazing against that. Anything that gets a giant buff, basically, it's just a really nice one-of to have access to. And one-ofs are very powerful in this list because, once again, we do have Nature's Gift and even access to multiple Nature's Gifts through Ethne. So having one of a card, you're far more likely to see it in a deck like this with a significant tutor package than you would just be by just jamming one card into a more standardized deck. The Shackles, same sort of thing. This is how you try and fight Morkvarg a lot of times in round 1. You Shackles them, they burn their anti-Shackles card, then you can Ethne Shackles, and then you scorch down the giant Morkvarg. Granted, Siegfried is a problem. Sometimes they're going to bring Morkvarg back, right? But at least now he's weaker. So whether you want to pick and choose that fight, it's contextual. This card also allows you to Shackles a Kayran, a Tibor, or a Hjalmar, and then hit that with a Scorch for a pretty big swing, as gigantic golds can be problematic, particularly if you have a hand that's not going to let you play all 3 of your protectors in the 3rd round. That comes up, and Bork. Bork is a card that completely annihilates you in round 3, and it's seeing a reasonable amount of play at the moment. Shackles is just the answer to Bork, and it's a great answer because they're going to play Bork with 3 cards or less, with 3 cards generally, at which point, even if they have a decoy to try and get it off, the timer's not going to go off. Also, once it's silver, even if they decoy it, you can Scorch it away, weather it away, thunder it away, you can kill it somehow. So if there was no Bork in the meta, Shackles might be debatable, but the fact that it's your best answer versus Bork, it really helps out with the gigantic golds that are everywhere. Tibor and Hjalmar are everywhere, absolutely everywhere, the high MMRs on the ladder. And it's good against Morkvarg as well time to time. So yeah, I would not play the deck without the Shackles. Then we have our 2 Epidemics. I think 2 is the right number. Sometimes this card is awesome, and sometimes this card is terrible. It's very matchup specific. You have to sort of plan out your turn. It's bad against Nilfgaard, mostly because they're putting a bunch of little 2-strength idiots on your side of the board. So you really want to watch out for it there. That being said, if they open with an Imperial Brigade, you just get them. If they open on that 10 strength golem that draws you 2 6 strength golems, you get them. You can get yourself into situations, and if you have one of those weird hands where you have 2 protectors and a first light, but also an Ithilien, sometimes Ithilien into like double epidemic can be devastating in round 3. I've made that play a few times before. It is rare, but it's powerful. I would definitely play at least 1. 2 is a bit of a meta call on my part. I like the number 2. I'm not going to look to change it right now. Then we've got our suite of Bronze Weathers. I started off with 1 of each of them. The Frost only seemed useful against monsters in particular, and once in a while Nilfgaard, and it was very rarely the deciding factor. In your average situation, Fog is the best one. That being said, sometimes you really want to hit those little 3-strength golems. Sometimes you want to clear, foglets out from underneath something that's larger. So I do still like the rain. So I went with the 2 fog, 1 rain split, which I think is fairly solid. I've been having good success with it. Like I said, I've been doing very well with the deck. You can check the overall win rate playing at very high MMR. The last couple of days I've been in the top 50. Today was all in the top 10. Well, you win some games, lose some games. Pretty much all within the top 25, though. And I have a 64% win rate with the deck. So I'm liking the current mix that I have for my particular meta. 2 fogs and 1 rain just seem to get the job done. On the whole, they seem better than Frost. If you're seeing a ton of monsters, Frost might be better. Frost is great at popping the little eggs without having to burn an epidemic. That's something to keep in mind, that the Harpy spawn. And then the last removal spells we have in the deck is the 3 Alzur's Thunder. I actually think 2 is the right number. I just haven't found a removal spell that I think is better than the Thunder right now. This is something that's likely going to change in the future. I think I'm going to go down to 2. But 3 is fine. The third one is more of a placeholder until I find something that I like a little bit more. It's just solid single target removal. You can just throw it out there on a 10 for 7 points worth of value, which is not great, but it's fine. More often than not, it's fine. This is probably the most flexible spot in the deck. After that would probably be the Sara. But this is easily the most flexible slot in the deck, something you could certainly live without. In fact, if you find something better, go for it. I just don't like the idea of like Manticore Venom, for example, or Lacerate, as it's pretty rare that they're building up huge rows because of all of your removal. Relying on them having multiple targets in play for your removal to be good just doesn't seem great when, a very large portion of my deck is dedicated to removing their threats off the board. That's also another reason why I chose not to include the Stemforged Tremors, which is in a significant amount of lists. It's possible that 1 Tremors is better than the 3rd Thunder. It's something I'm considering, but I haven't made the swap yet. So I've already talked about the matchups. I'll give you a little bit about what's in the deck, why it's in there, why certain cards aren't in there. One other last note I would like to say with this deck is you're going to have to do a lot of thinking, and there's a learning curve to it. You're not just going to spam your whole hand and get a bunch of free wins with the deck. The deck heavily rewards thinking ahead. You need to plan out, particularly your mulligan phase is very skill testing in this deck. What you can draw, what you can't afford to draw, doing the dance of first lights versus Ithilien, how you're going to set up your strength for round 3. It's not easy. It's definitely a difficult, but it's a fun challenge, and it's part of the deck I really enjoy playing. It also rewards, I know I'm going to need my Shackles in turn 3. I know that I want to keep this particular removal spell against Faction X, whereas that card's really bad against Faction Y. So you want to learn your matchups, you want to get practice in with the deck, and it feels very rewarding when you do win. Very, very rewarding, because you had to make a lot of decisions that really did influence the outcome of the game. The deck can have some wonky hands. If you draw none of your golds and, like the wrong suite of removal, you're in a lot of trouble. If you draw all of your archers early and like a bunch of first lights and just basically a bunch of nonsense. But any deck can draw poor. Every deck has some component of this, and I feel like the Sara does help mitigate this to at least a reasonable extent. So I wish you guys good luck with the deck. If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button. Costs you nothing, helps me out. We're going to be doing at least 1, probably close to 2 videos per week as, the open beta goes on and we climb the ladder. So we're going to be doing deck ticks and tournament reviews. I'm going to start competing in tournaments and streaming those as well. You can find me at my stream. There should be a link to it in my YouTube. It's Twitch TV /Joe Snow is my Twitch name, and the O in Snow is a 0. So if you guys enjoyed the content, feel free to stop by. If you have any questions or comments, I'll try and answer them. If not, stop by my stream. Just ask me, and I will answer the question right there for you. That's definitely the best way to get in touch with me. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy the deck and go out there, kick some ass with it. Thanks, guys. Have a great day and hope you enjoyed the video.